Welcome back, everybody, to Simplexity Analytics Seasonal Report for November of 2024. We have a number of markets that are the most bullish this month. We have coffee, we have the 30-year bonds, the 10-year notes, and we have three stock indices that are also very bullish this time of year, and that's the S&P, the Russell, and the Dow Jones. In November, we have one market that is the most bearish, and that is the Canadian dollar. So in this video, we're going to highlight specifically the Canadian dollar. We do the S&P E-mini every month, well this month especially since it is the most bullish month, and as well we're going to take a look at the 30-year bonds. First up, we're going to have a look at the only bearish market that we have for this month, and that's the Canadian dollar. If you look at the stats for it, 27% of Novembers have finished higher than they have opened. So that means 73% of the time, this market closes with a weak close compared to its open. So if we look at the seasonal indicator at the bottom, we see how November has fared in the past. We have a little increase near the beginning of the month and then a drop off a few years ago. Not quite as pronounced a couple years ago. And then last year was kind of back to the way it was 3 years ago. So this might be an interesting market to look at and see which of these patterns is going to prevail. And we might get a little more insight into this by looking at the heat map for the Canadian dollar. Looking at the heat map for the Canadian dollar using a $1,400 stop for this market, we see that once we get past the first couple days that have some greens in here, then we head into some pretty deep reds for the next 2 weeks straight. And a lot of these reds have some very good dollar values and percentages as well. This date specifically here, this is for the date of the month. This is November 8th only. November 8ths have been 16-0. Perfect trade here for the Canadian dollar on the short side. And if we go across the day of the month, this is day number 15, 91%, and then 86% on the trading day of the year. And then we have a lot of bright reds in here as well in the following week. And we have some 90s in here, 90 over here, and we get into even over $10,000 here in this trade and this trade. So a lot of good dollars and a lot of good percentages right in the beginning 2 weeks on the short side for Canadian dollar. Looking at the seasonal chart for the US 30-year Treasury bonds, we see that November is the most bullish month of the year at a 67% winning percentage and has made over $20,000. One interesting thing here, if we look at the seasonal indicator, we see how this year the seasonal indicator is showing a rise from a bottom in the end of October to present. If we go back over the years, we see that last year it was same thing, having that bottom in October and then being relatively flat into November. The year before that, though, see November tailing off, and before that, even more pronounced, tailing off towards the end of the year and making a bottom in towards the beginning of the following year. So this may be more of a more recent trend in that Novembers are tending to be more bullish for the 30-year bonds, because the reason this would start to incline now and it didn't a few years ago is because the more recent data is showing that November has become more bullish than it had been a while ago. So let's see if we can find any correlation here in the heat map for this. The heat map for the 30-year bonds is pretty straightforward. We have a lot of the green occurring in the middle of the month in these 2 weeks right here. And I especially want to divert your attention to the right-hand side here, where we have 3 of the top 5 most bullish 5-day holds of the year, all occurring consecutively on 3 days. And we have the best one of the entire year in the middle. So this is a time right at the beginning of this week to start looking long bonds, and this is a trade that you can hold for a number of days. So what this is telling you, the 5-day holds, is you're buying on the open of this Tuesday, for instance, and then you would hold it for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days, and the selling of that contract will occur at the open of the following day after that. So this is a very bullish time, and this is a really good time to look for long trades in bonds. And last, but certainly not the least, this is the S&P 500 seasonal chart. Now this is probably the granddaddy of all seasonal months, and we're going to look at the seasonal chart here and then the heat map after of how great of a month this is for the S&P E-minis. It's the most bullish month. It has had 72% of Novembers have finished higher than they've opened, and it has made $62,000. That's quite a bit more. If you've been following these videos, the usual dollar amounts, this is quite substantially more than the other months. And if we look at the seasonal indicator, we see how it takes off on a very steep incline year after year right in this time period. And this is right where we are right now. Now let's have a look at the heat map and see how this looks in terms of dollar figures. And here it is. This is the heat map for the November S&P E-minis using a $2,000 stop. And on this chart, we see we only have one red day. So we're not even going to look at that because it is surrounded by a whole bunch of bright green days. And that pretty much covers the entire month. So since it's the most bullish month for the S&Ps, let's look at some key areas here we can focus in on. So right off the bat, let's go to the 5-day holds. We have the second best one of the entire year, kicking off on the very first day of the month, and that's an 86% historical trade and has made $34,000. And going across on that same day, we have a 95% trade on the day left in the month and a 95% on trading day of the year. And that goes into the next week, which follows up with a 100% trade here, a 95% and a 91% here with really good dollar values. A lot of these are over $20,000. And then we get into that neutral area. So this here would be a time where you could look for some holds right at the very beginning of the month and then look to probably get out in the middle of the following week. Then we get into the next week and the bullishness starts to occur again about in the middle, about on the Wednesday. These aren't great numbers in here. We have a lot of lighter greens and not some bright greens, and the bright greens are kind of in the low 80s with some lower dollar values. But then we head into the following week, and this is where the real bullishness starts to come in. And then we get into the week before Thanksgiving, and that's where it's just the market is just on fire at this time before Thanksgiving. We have 100% trade down here with the trading day of the month. That is the 17th trading day of November has been perfect. 22-0 has made $16,000. On date of the month, that's on the November 26th, that's 11-0. And then we have a bunch of really high 90s. We have one loss here each in day left in the month, 4 days left in the month, and 3 days left in the month, 95% trades. So right in here before Thanksgiving is a time year after year, you buy stocks before Thanksgiving, you hold for a few days, and then you can either try to ride it out for a longer trade, or you can just take your profits shortly after Thanksgiving. So look for longs pretty much all of November for the stock markets. Thanks for watching. Remember to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you're notified on our next videos. Simplexity Analytics, making complex trading simple.